When we come into connection here on the 3D, that's when we explode polarities. Twin flame is a high vibrational connection. You can also have high vibrational soulmate connections, but they're not necessarily 5D energetic support. They're 3D support. Soulmates will often do everything they can to protect you from a lot of pain and revisiting childhood pains or past life pains and keep you wrapped up nicely in cotton wool. And it's beautiful. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but it's not what twin flame does. So twin flame won't enable. If there's any codependency whatsoever, twin flame massages it out. Twin flames essentially can't run from the mirror. They try. Yeah, there's the runner and the chaser. Those polarities can often change around, but you can't run from the mirror.
Welcome everybody to our next episode, and we're going to talk about a topic that I personally very much excited to talk to someone who's an expert, and it's about twin flames. I got beautiful guests from Australia, Lenore Kingdon, who has lived a 20-year experience as a twin flame. She's a way sure for other twins to transform the deep pain of soul recognition and self-love to sovereignty empowerment to ultimate divine union. Welcome, Lenore. So happy to have you on my show. What are twin flames? Some people might know and have different preconceived notions about them.
So my understanding of twin flames, which is not something that I understood for a very long time. I've been on the journey for over 20 years, and it's only been in the last 5 years that I've had more of an awareness of what it is. I received information from my own higher self during a past life regression. It was a question that I had specifically asked. So the information I got from my higher self was that twin flames are fractals of the oversoul, and all fractals vibrate at slightly different rates, but twin flames vibrate at the same rate. That's why they're so drawn together. Their vibration is exactly the same. What that means in the 3D is that the 3D experience is, it's almost like they seek out constantly going through all the noise of the third dimension until they come together like that. It could be in any way. A lot of twin flames are being activated via online communication these days, not necessarily physical. Mine was physical meeting. I'm even getting goosebumps now. I feel like twin flame is either twin flames evolving or I'm just getting more information about what it's all about. So there's a lot of people out there who say it's not a romantic connection, or it's not.
It doesn't have to be romantic.
I used to say that the primary purpose is not romantic. The primary purpose is to increase your own consciousness, awareness, vibration, ascension. And that the romantic aspect is secondary. But actually, I've just only in the last few days, I've started to change my perspective on that through some information I got through. And I sat outside in the sun this morning and wrote it all down, what I got. A main purpose of the dynamic is romantic, but it's actually a very high vibrational romantic connection, which the energy has to support until the divine feminine is at a very high level. And a true divine masculine, what I mean by that is someone who truly is your twin, will also have an increase in frequency as the energy pulls on them. Nothing's linear, and anything spiritual is all energetic, and it's not always easy to put energy into words. But the way I see it is that the masculine and the feminine come together like this. They have a vibrational recognition, and then they split apart, quite polarized. The feminine is the one who is for the reasons for why this is happening. This is not a usual relationship. It's often something they can't explain to other people, but they have an inner knowing. So they go and search, and they end up going down the spiritual route because all the other, the psychology, therapy, etc., it doesn't make any sense to them. Anyway, so as they do that, and then their awareness of themselves and their own patterns, behaviors, etc. Because in my experience, twin flames generally have significant trauma from childhood, so they've developed lots of pain body barriers. The feminine starts to have an awareness of her pain body, starts to heal her pain body, or I shouldn't say her, because it's not gender specific. You could even say the chaser. The chaser starts to heal the pain body consciously, and the masculine, not realizing really what's going on, not having an awareness, conscious awareness, they start healing too, but not always in the way the feminine expects or the way the feminine wants. They do the healing that's important for them. In one way, it's an extremely personal journey and awakening to self, but twin flame specifically is also romantic connections. There's lots of different ways to awaken, that you can be awakened. This is just one way to be awakened, but it just has a very different dynamic and the paradigm is different.
I'm curious from your experience because I have a lot of to add from my own personal experience. But just to clarify for those who are tuning in, so they would ask, what's the difference between twin flames, let's say, and soul mates or karmic relationship? What's your take on it? I have my own take, so I'm curious to
Yeah, I'm
hear yours.
interested to hear your take too. My take on the difference between twin flames and soulmates is that twin flames support each other energetically, 5-dimensional support. It sounds lovely and romantic and fluffy, but in reality, in 3 dimension, it's really difficult, really hard. But the energetic support is so consistent and so raw that the feminine and then the masculine have no choice but to do lots and lots of healing. And it can even be past life healing. Well, it brings through past life wounding as well, which is why it feels so intense and so much deeper than people you might see around you who are doing some deep healing. There's been a soul contract thread through many past lives together, so we're bringing through a lot of those dynamics from past lives. When we come into connection here on the 3D, that's when we explode polarities. Some of the information I got too is that twin flame is a high vibrational connection. You can also have high vibrational soulmate connections, but they're not necessarily 5D energetic support, they're 3D support. Soulmates will often do everything they can to protect you from a lot of pain and revisiting childhood pains or past life pains and keep you wrapped up nicely in cotton wool. And it's beautiful. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but it's not what twin flame does. So twin flame won't enable if there's any codependency whatsoever. Twin flame massages it out.
Because it's such a vibratory mirror to each other, it's mirroring you constantly, so there's
Mm,
no escape.
mm,
And
yeah.
it's either you face it or you run away from it entirely.
Twin flames essentially can't run from the mirror. They try. Yeah, there's the runner and the chaser, and those polarities can often change around, but you can't run from the mirror no matter how much the masculine or the runner will try and run. They can only get a certain way. And when they become the chaser, they will only chase to a certain point as well. Even the feminine, when the feminine chases, the feminine will only chase to a certain point until their consciousness and vibration is much higher. Well, they'll chase to a certain point and then they'll run away. When their vibration's higher, it's not that they chase, it stays still, it floats, but they magnetize into each other again.
I don't think anyone really talks about that there are like twin flame potentialities. So we have more than one twin flame. So
Mm-hmm.
some people assume, oh, I have only one. There's actually, from my experience, at least six if we
Mm-hmm.
are in these monadic groups of divine masculine and feminine representations. So you have at least six potentialities. And just because you have potentiality doesn't necessarily always mean that you're gonna lock in with that twin flame. So from my experience meeting my husband, my previous boyfriend, father of my kid, was actually my what I call near twin, where I had a lot of past lives with him. It was a lot of heavy baggage. It was like a wound trauma and a lot of things to fulfill in a soul contract. I guess it was my kid. And my experience of the one you can lock in with, you have karma, but not on earth, because that's too much to process. The lock in mechanism is actually a conscious choice both have to be ready to do. We actually done it like 2 months after we met in a ceremony. But there was that runner chaser a little bit in the beginning, but I think we both in the same level of consciousness where we were ready
Yes, that's right.
for
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
it. And we locked in the ceremony. And when I say lock in, it was like he was fully stepping into self-love, and so did I. And then it was like I fully trust my power across space and time with the
Yeah.
other to be the mirror. A lot of twin flames out there running around and dancing the dance, as I call it.
Yeah,
But
that's
but the
yeah.
divine unions is another caliber of the next level of twin
Yeah,
flames, whether you're
absolutely.
actually able to process and work through this
Yeah.
and actually
Yeah.
lock in.
Yeah, my perspective would probably be a bit different. I definitely think we can have more than one twin flame. Anyone who has soul contract, it's all karmic. So even our twin flames are karmic. But our soul contract karmics also catalyze us to heal. Everyone we have a soul contract with is a
Yeah,
catalyst. So
for
it's
sure.
almost like the label doesn't even matter. My experience is the difference with the twin flame is the twin flame do a certain part of the job. They do the whole job from when you have soul recognition or vibrational recognition, that never leaves you and that never leaves them. Whereas when you have these other partners who are there to teach you lessons and catalyze that lesson's done and dusted and you move on. Again, to get into union with your twin flame, there has to be a compatibility. So, which is what you said. You both need to have stepped into that different arena of self love and acceptance, Christ consciousness, etc. But it feels like it's the twin flame who will not stop energetically supporting until you get to self love. Whereas those other ones that catalyze, they'll just do a little bit of the job and then they go. Like they don't support you energetically anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good distinction that the twin flames, whether you lock in with them or not, still have their role.
Yeah, and even if you don't, as you say, lock in with them, they'll still keep supporting you all the way through. And how that looks in the 3D is that you will have synchronicities at certain points, or they will come into your awareness, even though, for example, you may not have communicated with them for years. They will come back into your awareness, and that's fifth dimensional message
Mhm.
saying, okay, you need some to do some work around this particular issue, whatever it is.
So, what was your experience when you met your twin 20 years ago?
Yeah,
What do you feel you met because there was a specific divine mission that you had to fulfill and you are fulfilling it 20 years past? I've been in my relationship for 8 years. I feel 8 years has been 8,000, if not
yeah,
eons,
yeah.
in terms of exponential growth.
It feels like in that nearly 22 years, we have lived many lifetimes together in
Mm.
that time. So, yeah, I understand what you're saying. So, what happened with me was we met through friends. We had a short 3 week relationship, very intense, very romantic. The stuff of Mills and Boone, like the falling in love, but then the soul recognition, the vibrational recognition, and exploded apart. So I feel like my awakening and my journey is there's a lot of differences from the twins who have been awakened in probably the last 10 years or so in terms of it wasn't a known quantity back then. Nobody had heard. I saw the term thrown around a couple of times in a community I was in, but no one really had taken that ball and run with it. So I had that soul recognition, extremely painful, just continual rejection, continual huge Kundalini awakening. Even though I didn't know it was a spiritual connection, I did a lot of the stuff that as a mentor, I would tell my clients to do in terms of the surrendering, the letting go, the moving on. But this person just kept, every time I did that, they would come back in, and then it would start all over again. So we both went off and created separate lives, but still never ever unable to get out of each other's awareness. At that point, it didn't catalyze healing. I needed another soulmate, karmic, whatever you want to call them, to come in and do that. And that catalyzed some bigger healing, which was then very much related to my twin flame. So I've gone through major changes in my 3D environment, as well as spirit, like the spiritual growth has been exponential in the last few years, probably 5 years or so.
And you still in touch with your twin flame, you said, and you still
Yeah.
friends?
And the energy is now very different. Just in the last maybe 6 months, the energy has changed very much. Feels very much like early union.
Oh, interesting. Because I do feel last 6 months have been tremendously
Right.
different
Yeah.
in various ways. For my husband Daniel and I, it was more like we feel like we've been tested on a 3D
Mhm.
level in a way that we haven't before. Not so much about us, but just more the foundation of what
Right.
we do in here. And at the same time, our 5D has blossomed and
Yeah.
accelerated, but it's 3D still a little shaky. And I feel I'm the one holding stronger ground
Yeah.
as the divine feminine on the 3D.
Always, always. Saying works in with my feelings around the feminine doing a lot of healing on her own, and then the masculine does a lot of healing in union, in concert with the feminine.
In my relationship, I'm definitely the one who having, as you said, a stronger capacity to hold the container for the healing.
Yes,
So it
yes.
very much
And it's
aligns
the
with what you
spiritual
said.
container. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm holding a container. It's a concept from shamanism. You gotta stay on your mountain
Yeah.
while others swamps. And we actually got married that way. It was a shamanic wedding at Burning Man where a shaman was like, "You stay on your mountain, you stay on your mountain, visit each other, but not going to each other's swamps." And we
Yeah.
have in the last 8 years gone through so many tests, and I've been really consistently staying on my mountain while
Yes,
he's
yes.
been weavering in and out and still
Right.
figuring his way.
My twin and I have had a lot of karma to play it. This is why I think our journey has been so long as well. I feel like we both made the contract to heal a lot of karma over
Mm,
many lifetimes. So we have had some real karmic tests, not only between us, but in our own personal lives.
mm.
I also feel another reason why I have had such a long journey is so that it's almost like I have experienced every step of the way of a twin flame awakening and connection, and mine is prolonged and comprehensive, whereas a lot of the twins who are coming in now, they will experience the same thing but in more short. But
Things are changing energetically. So those who are listening about this and were like, well, why do I care about twin flames?
yeah,
And I think some really seeking for that type of union, and others, some of my girlfriends have experienced and they got burned by it, the experience, and no longer want it. So it's, I definitely want to forewarn, it's not for faint hearted. This is a serious work. I
yeah.
feel those souls that are really ready to move in their like consciousness.
In my knowing, if you're chosen to be a twin flame, I feel like it's something that's really chosen as well. Like it's really guided by the hand of God, source, creator, universe, whatever you want to call it. My feeling is that people who say, I don't want to do this twin flame thing, they're not actual twin flames. Because
Mm.
in my knowing, you cannot end a twin flame energetically. You can't end that connection. You can't cut cords with a twin flame. A true twin flame, it's impossible to cut cords because even though I say two fractals of the oversoul vibrate, so we are separate souls within ourselves, we are also that person and that person is us, and you can't cut off cords to yourself.
Yeah, the concept of oversoul is it is vibrationally very much an alignment, we have a galactic story. And we
Mm-hmm.
remember that galactic story, and it goes to the roots of Lyran and Draco and the whole Orion War. So we
Yeah.
have a lot of those underpinnings. And on Akasha records, they say we've done this many times before, like in
Yeah.
Andromeda system. So it feels like even before the soul was maybe here in this galaxy, in its specific, it is possible in other systems, and even possibly in different universes as primordial beings like Phoenix and the dragon. Those are the energies. There's like a bigger play. All these aspects of ourselves
Mm-hmm.
and how they materialize
Mm-hmm.
in there's what I call the spirit of the relationship. This entity that has its own consciousness that is holding, and the spirit of the relationship is very much connected to the source, and it's everything we do and is supporting this bigger divine mission.
Definitely. And when you spoke before about missions, the first thing that came to my head was my mission is to be unconditional love. It's almost like our mission as twin flames is the same as what we know as the incarnation Jesus Christ. He was an incarnation of Sananda, the ascended master, which, if you want to put the linear name to it, it's to embody that same unconditional love that Jesus Christ was here to emanate. This is the job that we've also been given.
And he had a twin flame too.
Yes, he did. He did.
Yeah.
Not only Mary Magdalene, but also his mother.
And
He
grandmother too.
and
The
grandmother. Yeah. Interestingly, Jesus and Mary Magdalene, they followed the same dynamic as a lot of twin flames do, or which I did, and a lot of the veteran twin flames did, in terms of meeting. Jesus went off and married and had a family with someone else. Mary lost it and had the bathroom floor, lots of dark nights of the soul. And then he woke up and came back to her. So they even did the 3D
Yeah.
dynamic.
Ultimately, I think they were still in human form, right?
Yes,
Having
that's right. But
so they
interesting
had.
how they supported each other energetically and how we
Yeah,
can see that
I love
happened.
that. There's so many powerful twin flame couples in the history that we can think
Yes, there
of.
is.
And I feel that's the most balanced energy, not one versus the other, but when there's always two playing it.
Yeah, I also read the vibrational emanation from two people, especially as they're healed and higher consciousness, is synergistic. So when they get together, when they are drawn together, that vibration just is, well, synergistic 100 times what any normal souls who come together is. The cosmos is purely mathematical, it's scientific. So as ascension occurs, vibrational numbers change, and the vibrational numbers correlate or correspond to various feelings within. So as we know, love vibrates at a certain level, hate vibrates at a certain level,
Right.
etc. When twins come together, their vibration is synergistic, and that's what emanates out into the collective. I think the reason there are so many twin flames coming into activation now is because it's that synergistic energy that's going to get us over the mountain into the new earth,
I completely agree with you. When I
figuratively.
met Daniel in 2015 and we got married in 2016, I was guided for us to do a twin flame activation during our wedding ceremony at Burning Man. We called in these frequencies to come online. And because I did get that message that it's part of this evolutionary path we in with the mother, and it's very much needed because, as you said, we amplify in the field, and we also able to hold the light so much
Yeah,
more because
yeah,
of the sacred geometries that come in together,
yeah.
holding vibrationally much
Right,
more than we could separately. And I
right.
remember like a lot of my past lives on earth when I was a powerful being, whether I was a shaman or highest priestess in Egypt, I held a lot of power and I was able to do a lot of things, but I couldn't hold as much light back then because I was still solo.
I've got about the high priestesses in ancient Egypt. So it feels to me that all the high priestesses in ancient Egyptian times are twin flames in this
Yeah.
lifetime. You know it?
Yeah, we were in the same temple in Saqqara.
Yeah,
We actually remembered that we saw each other, but we did not interact. And but we
yeah,
were
yeah.
holding the container of
Right,
that temple, which was a
right.
portal of its own. It's
Yes.
very connected to the Atlantean timelines, and a lot of
Yeah,
the
yes, yes,
technology that we remember in right now, all this quantum technology we've built in like crazy in the last 2 years, all coming
yes.
from those memories from that time.
I got as high priestesses in Egypt who were actually used and abused by the hierarchy. And so we were baby factories as well as being used for our powers. Isis actually came through really strongly for me via a friend who did a channeling for me. I'm not an incarnation of Isis, but I'm very close to Isis. Anyway, so the vows that a lot of us made was that we would not allow our spiritual gifts out until we felt safe.
Mm,
And it's the twin flame catalyzes us into creating that safety so that our gifts can come online.
chills when you say that. Not so much Isis, but I very much embody Sekhmet, and that
Right.
energy that feels very in resonance. That timeline is very clear, at least that first lifetime on Earth, and the decisions we had to make in closing some of the portals and going into the earthly incarnation
Yeah.
cycle very much was about protecting the knowledge,
Yes,
protecting
protecting the knowledge.
and
Yeah.
the codes. We talked about sacred geometry. Each of us carries certain codes within our soul blueprint, and so I think as the twin flames are coming online, those codes are getting reactivated, and
Yes.
hence the memories that go galactically and beyond.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
those codes are needed now. And that's the
Mm.
work. I think the easier path is
Yeah.
to run away, hide
That's
under
right. Go back to
the
sleep.
blanket, back to sleep. But I don't think high priestesses can even do that.
No, I don't either. No matter
No,
how
there's
much
no
you
more
try.
hiding. It's all about leveling up. What I'm also finding some of my high priestesses in my circles sometimes not meeting their twin flame who physically in flesh, but also connecting their twin flames as their guides,
Yeah.
like
Okay.
having divine union with their twin flames that from the non-form state is still
Yeah.
guiding them and still very connected. It's just
Okay.
not always incarnated in flesh.
I don't have any experience with that, but I find that really interesting to learn more about all the time. I have heard it and I have heard people speak about it, but not in depth.
I think we're writing the book about twin flames real time, and it's changing.
That's
Everything you
right.
find online is like half truth in it, right? Sometimes those of us who are actually experiencing twin flame relationship, this piece kind of resonates, but that one is so off. You are in some ways more energetically supported than maybe we were 8 or 20 years, 22 years ago. And
Mm-hmm.
that's nice. We support it all around, like opening
Yeah.
up your gifts and activating your light language and whatever connections you have to your higher self and
Yeah.
trusting that those
Mm-hmm.
experiences, but you're not alone. And
Mm-hmm.
whatever you do, it's beyond your understanding
Mm-hmm.
of the framework of regular relationships. This is
Yes,
not
definitely.
about
It's a
you.
it's a new paradigm, and
Yeah.
as I was saying before, it's a very high vibrational. It's a necessary high vibrational paradigm and consciousness within relationship that everyone in time, everyone is going to have this relationship, but we're just starting it off
Mhm.
for humanity.
Eventually, those who are ready
It's
need
all
a
about,
lead.
you know what? I feel like because I actually listened to one of your podcasts the other day while I was cleaning the house.
I love that you
And
did.
it was the lady who spoke about the children that are coming in now, the new
Yes,
babies that are
less.
coming now and in the
Yeah.
future. Yep.
Yeah.
And
2027. So it's really not that far
yeah,
out.
not that far away. So my feeling is that, and you can see it's happening now, is that a lot of people, a lot of babies being born are avatars, really, and they're already going to be at that higher level of consciousness. So they don't have to go through the twin flame pain. When they recognize each other's vibration, the reaction will be very different to, for example, what mine was. And I still see people out there who are still in that painful level, that painful stage of the twin flame. There are still people being activated who aren't on their path or are only just newly on their path, but there are also a lot being activated who are further down on their path
Yeah.
or higher in consciousness.
And those of us that carry this twin flame frequency, we can also activate others to meet their twin flames. That has happened in my life several times, where actually it was a conscious activation I did for someone when she was ready. It was usually with a female who would then be, as you said, the chaser, or would hold that container for the twin flame to come in. When she did the work and she was in self-love and ready for that next step, it's just incredible how fast that manifestation
Right.
is, including myself. When I did my
Yeah.
it was like a month. It was
Right.
very
Okay.
fast manifestation. And this close friend of mine, it was 3 weeks. So it's just,
Wow.
that is a real thing. But steps that have to happen prior.
Things I'd seen and heard where people who had no awareness heard the term twin flame
Mm.
and they think it's very romantic and lovey-dovey, like a soulmate. They've talked about calling in their twin flame, activating their twin flame. That actually makes sense and resonates what you're saying in terms of a fairly decent level of awareness and high consciousness
And
along
to
to
your point, high priestesses.
yeah, yeah,
That only happened with high priestess. Now that I
yes,
think about it,
right.
I never connected that together, but that makes sense, because I think high priestesses are just already have that within them.
That's
Attract
right.
that.
I was a high priestess, but I think in at the point that I was activated, they obviously thought I was ready to be activated and that I would handle it because there were some suicidal moments. It was been a really difficult path, but there was obviously something in me, and it took me a long time to accept that I've been chosen specially, or there's a specialness about it. As you said before, not everyone can handle. So
Yeah.
they obviously thought 20 years ago, even though there's not much support around, I'll find it and I can handle it.
But here you are, way short for others.
I'm at the other end. I feel like I have gone over that threshold of that pain, which, if you look at the hero's journey, I often liken the twin flame journey or awakening to the hero's journey. I got lost in the temptress stage. I don't know if lost is the right word because I had lots of lessons to learn. I feel that I'm really stubborn, and so I had a lot of lessons to learn. I'm out that other side now. So, my new mission, purpose, is to help other twins who are stuck to get out
Mm.
of that stuckness.
If someone comes to you and they're telling you they stuck, like, what are usually the scenarios, and how do you usually help them to get out of that?
The scenarios are usually that they've met this person, they've fallen in love with this person doesn't want to have anything to do with them. They keep rejecting them, but they keep coming back, but then they keep rejecting them as well. And they're going crazy in their minds. When they met this person and before they met this person, every part of their life pretty much together, they were at the top of their game. They just couldn't get the relationship part of their lives sorted. This person comes into their lives, creates a lot of havoc and chaos after a
Yeah.
while, and they can't move on from this person, and it is starting to affect all those parts of their lives that were all together. That's starting to fall apart as well. So I just listen to them, and it's like I can, when I listen to someone speaking, it's like a Tetris puzzle or a puzzle, and I can see where the bits fit in. And so I can see what they need from me, and we go from there. So as coaching, like I don't get people to go through their stories unless they want to or unless there's something that needs to be said, as in their trauma stories. I use Holy Fire Reiki because Holy Fire Reiki uses Christ consciousness energy. So it's an ignition of flame within rather than drawing the energy from above. Transmissions, meditations, activations. So it'll always be something new each time, something different.
And I think you're not teaching them in any, or facilitating for them to run away or disconnect from this person, but more to find that inner strength within themselves.
So it's
Put it together.
as the feminine, it's about the feminine. Like in the 3D, the feminine will say, why can't I find a relationship? Why do all my relationships fail? What am I doing wrong? And they will often project that onto their masculine.
Mm.
Oh, they're doing this, they're doing that. They said this, they said that, they betrayed me. So that's what it looks like. So the idea for someone who comes to me is for me to get them to look within, as you said, and realize their own inner power, their own sovereignty, and get out of the pain and learn how to open themselves up to their higher self. There's often a block in their crown chakra. They can't open up to their own messages. So teaching them to pull down all those, if you're into human design, all my soul purpose is around liberation, dynamism, liberation. So the shadow is provocation. That's my soul's purpose, is to find all my blockages and just tear them all down and eradicate them. For my clients is to pull down all their blocks to their higher self, but also it will be blocks to love and relationship, and will also be blocks to becoming divine so that they can have union with their masculines.
Mm.
So it's
Beautiful.
not only what I did in my past life, which was doula type job as well in labour and birth as a midwife, but also using my innate abilities to curate a program and then work intuitively with that person.
Beautiful. So you ushering and doing in a new twin flame
New
babies.
Earth, yeah, yeah, new twin flame babies. Yeah,
That's really powerful. And I think it's much needed. I think in my way, I do that too. It's just, I haven't so been focused on twin flames. But like I said, these high priestesses, they find their way to me when they're ready. I think in general, as twin flames, we are here to remove the blockages, to clear the path. And I think we carry that vibration. So it's in some ways easier for us to hold that light for others, divine feminine, that container for healing and mothering and nurturing,
yeah,
and others really trust us because we operate in that twin flame frequency that is
yeah,
closer to the source.
yeah, yes, definitely.
Tell us about your book, because I know you're international best-selling author. Is it
Yes,
Threshold Stories of Initiation? What that book
that's
is
it.
about?
So it's an anthology of stories. There's about 14 or 15 contributors, authors, and it's the story of what it was that happened in your life on a soul level, on a spiritual level, that led you to work in your soul business, your chosen business. So my story is about my twin flame journey. So I write a lot about my personal journey, and then I talk about how I then came into inner divine union. For
Hmm.
me, that was always the most important thing. I'm starting to understand the reason for outer divine union as well. It was my story about how I evolved spiritually
Through the twin flame.
through the twin flame awakening. That was my
Yeah.
awakening. People have awakenings in lots of different ways, near death experiences, death of a loved one, all sorts of ways, and mine just happened to be twin flame.
Hmm. I like how you said there is a soul contract of sorts as well with the twin flames. I never thought of it that way. Do you think it's a soul contract that we choose before coming into this lifetime, or is it all the way back? Like how far back the soul
Yeah,
contract goes?
I think, as I said before, it's not linear, so
Yeah, it never
you
is. Yeah.
can't, yeah, but it feels like to me, it's a common thread that comes from the beginning of existence. It's called Beyond Quantum Healing, so it's a branch of Dolores Cannon's QHHT.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so
familiar.
I had a session of that last week, and I went back to when I was just a gas on the planet. I just got goosebumps then. That is when the soul contract was made to create a thread through lifetimes. It's not a
To
one lifetime contract.
ultimately is back to the source.
Yeah, it's pre-creation.
We're coming back into the unification, the unified field of consciousness, and where it all
Mm,
started
mm,
and where we're going back to. So
mm.
all that it is. As a twin flame, I know that we experience that a lot with our twin flames, that unified field.
Yes, and you experience that not only when you're in sacred union, in the intimate act, but you experience that just when you're in each other's energy. Oh, even obviously fifth dimensional quantum entanglement, even when you're hundreds of miles apart.
Yeah, for sure. I remember when I met my husband, I always knew since I was a little girl, I had this deeper knowing that how he's going to look like. And I always attracted the same archetype. It's almost like I always knew how he's going to be. Someone even asked me, how do you know? I'm like, when I meet him, I'll know.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
like the recognition. I didn't know it was called Twin Flames. I just knew that it's a partnership that's not karmic, that is on the path of mastery.
Yeah.
When we were on that plane back to New York, and with all these synchronicities, of course, he was distracted, and there was a recognition. When there was a recognition, there was this energy that was shot through the plane. And then on that flight, I even asked him, "Are you ready to step into your mastery?" And to which he said yes. And ever since, there's been so many tests, but I think that's ultimately where twin flames headed. There's a level of mastery that happens
Yes.
where there's no real obstacles anymore because you just committing to this greater
And then
path.
your energy just flows. It's amazing how you don't even have to speak and your energy just flows. Very strong telepathy, very strong. The way his moon and my Neptune is, they're both in Scorpio. It's really interesting if you look at the astrology as well. So having that placement is very conducive to telepathic communication, quite big.
What I've also noticed in there is polarities. And I'm sure you understand that too. In all astrology, we have polarities where I'm fire, he's air, and the whole chart is like polarity of each other, but in direct alignment. So there's a
Mhm.
complementary. And then
Right.
I'm the vessel, he's the essence. All the readings we do, and it's always works out that way. It's supposed to be that way. It's almost all these other modalities are here just to explain what you already know and
Yes, well,
how,
yes,
if you really listen and you have the deeper knowing, that you have your twin flame out there, do trust that. I remember I was a single mom in New York City, and everyone was just creating all that fear vibration about
yes,
what is possible. And for me, I think the deepest truth was I'm not on a timeline, detached. And all I know, I have full faith, and now I'm ready for him. And
yep,
when I recognized that and I started calling that in actively, I was holding that container for that manifestation to happen. That is an important act. And I think it's very empowering place to be as well, where it's not doing from place of victimhood, whereas I'm looking for partnership to have someone fill my bucket because my
yes.
bucket is empty
I don't know how to fill it myself.
and I don't know how to feel self versus I'm in very good place. I got it all covered. Even as a single mom, it doesn't matter. And I can continue this way. But I
Yes,
know for my spiritual path, there is something greater and I am ready for that. And universe tests you too. Because I remember someone came into my life and was very close on some maybe elements of it, but it wasn't quite it. And
right.
so universe was very quick and, oh, let's test you. Let's
Yeah,
see
what are you
if
going to do here?
what are you going to do here? And I think the most empowering thing was actually to recognize that it wasn't what I
Yes.
called and to
And
walk
see,
away from that. Yeah, which was really great. I think part of this manifestation was to pass through the test.
my feeling is that's where free will comes in too. You recognize that the universe was testing you, so you followed your guidance from your higher self. For me, free will is when you make choices that are not necessarily messages from your higher self, they're from your lower self. And so you will make those choices using your own free will, but you'll keep getting the same lesson, just maybe in different clothes until you go, oh, my higher self wants me to do this, even though it's really painful or uncomfortable.
finding that alignment, that's the divine union within, right? It's finding that alignment between free
Yeah.
will and the divine will.
Yeah.
And when I
Yeah.
feel you find that alignment within you and you fully start trusting
Mm,
and accepting the
mm,
divine will, the ego is always going to be there. It's not going
yeah.
away. And I think just finding that relationship between the two and doing the
Mm,
work, however that looks like for you. I know for me, it was like plant medicine ceremonies, all these things that brought me to that place of acceptance
mm.
is the pre-work one has to
Yeah.
do.
When your own inner masculine can feed your own inner feminine,
Yeah.
give your own inner feminine the validation needing at the time, but it's your own inner masculine doing that. And that kind of brings me to the unity consciousness conversation, where I think another big mission of Twin Flames is to recognize unity consciousness and move out of separation consciousness. So I found for myself how separation consciousness manifested was not only through triggers and reacting, but also through synchronicities. So the more I didn't embody the unity consciousness, the more synchronicities, like very specific synchronicities to my masculine and his life. As I moved more into unity consciousness and realized and knew at a deeper level and embodied the fact that he actually lives in here, I
Mm.
stopped receiving synchronicities. I can't remember the last time I had a synchronicity now. It was well over 12 months ago. We are obviously we are all from the one and we are all in unity, but the human self gets, after we're born and we have social conditioning, etc., we start to move into separation consciousness. And I also say that there is no such thing as in separation from your twin flame. There's not. You could say 3D separation,
Right.
but you're never in separation from your twin. They live in here and you live in the same place in them as well.
That's such a powerful, beautiful concept. I think that's us still struggling, the
For sure,
unity
we're just
consciousness.
human, and we're still going
Yeah.
to fall into humanness and human
Humanness
patterns.
and conditioning and it's and
Yeah,
patterns. And
it's about
it's
having that
challenging.
awareness, awareness
And
to think, to be different in every moment.
I know even in my relationship, still working harmonization between the 3D and 5D and where the 3D gets frustrated because it wants things in a certain way. She likes
Yeah.
to control things. She likes things in a certain way. 5D is like stepping back and more in surrender. It's like there's
Yeah.
always the
Yeah.
macro versus the micro pictures and understanding it is a dance.
It
It's a
is a dance.
delicate
I call it an energetic dance in my book.
energetic dance, a delicate dance, and a lot of humbleness, a lot of flow, and understanding there is so much that we can know, and the key is to be as graceful about it as possible.
Yeah,
Knowing you
yes,
do in the best you
definitely.
can. And twin flame relationship is not for everyone.
No
It's a
way.
topic that we're discussing because it's in our lives and maybe we will inspire others, but it's not absolutely necessary on your spiritual growth.
No.
You can grow in other ways and you can have soulmate relationships or you can be in a community. Some people have polyamory, maybe it works for them. For me,
Yeah.
it wasn't something that was in resonance for my growth and my soul contract.
Hmm.
And there's no judgment about it. The key is to learn. There are some levels of mastery. So as long as you move through them, you step into self love, you letting go, you connect into unified field in
Yes.
different forms.
And for us, that was needed for us to step into the final step of it, or to experience, keep experiencing that awareness around, as you say, being humble, being graceful, relinquishing control. And for me, it was that very long process of doing all those things, but doing it over a long period of time because that's what was needed.
So beautiful. Thank you so much for this amazing conversation. We can go down this rabbit hole for so long, but
Yeah,
how
other
can someone,
perspectives.
Lenore, if someone is looking for more support and that's something that attracts them, how can they get a hold of you? What's the best way?
I have a YouTube channel which is at Twin Flame Love Potion. I also have a website, which is twinflamelovepotion.com. And I have TikTok and Instagram, which is Twin Flame Love Potion, but TikTok's got the dots in between the words and Instagram's got the underscore between the words. YouTube and TikTok are probably the places to hear from me the most. My email address is there, so if you just want to send me an email, tell me about what's going on with you and we can have a conversation. Go to my website. There's a little bit of reading on my website if you want to do that. But yeah, if you want direct contact with me, probably my email address, which is
Beautiful.
on my YouTube.
We hope this conversation brought some clarity on this confusing
Yes,
topic
me
of
too.
twin flames and inspired you. But ultimately, always know your connection to your higher self is what matters the most. And the rest is your free will, your choices of how you want to play in this reality. And Lenore and I are here to support you and hold that beautiful twin flame frequency of love and remembering that you are love. And thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much, Anna.
Yeah,
It's lovely speaking to you.
beautiful.